appears a mighty polypheme. And now on benches all are sat, in the cool air to sit and chat, till Phoebus dipping in the west shall lead the world the way to the splendor falls on castle walls, and snowy summer told in story. The long night shakes across the lakes, and the white cataract leaps in glory. Blow, bugle, blow, sent the wild echoes flying. Bugle blow, answer, echoes, answer. Dying, 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 dying. Oh, hark, oh, hear how thin and clear a father going. Oh, sweet and far from cliff and star, the horns of heaven faintly blowing. Lo, let us hear the purple glens replying. Bugle blow, answer, echoes, answer. Dying, 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 dying.
Buonasera a tutti, welcome everybody. Benvenuti al secondo appuntamento per questa MACH Academy, questa accademia online del Festival Musica sull'Acqua 2020. Per tutti gli spettatori, il pubblico che ci segue in italiano, comunichiamo che questo incontro, questa live sarà in inglese, perché l'inglese è la lingua ufficiale di MACH, dell'orchestra MACH, del Festival Musica sull'Acqua, perché questa è un'orchestra internazionale con musicisti provenienti da tutto il mondo. Ma promettiamo che parleremo un inglese molto semplice e comprensibile da tutti e molto lentamente anche, quindi ci potrete seguire comunque e gustare questo secondo meeting, questo secondo ascolto del viaggio dell'eroe. Ora passo all'inglese. And so welcome to everybody, dear musicians of MACH Orchestra. We remember you that we are also live on YouTube. So if you don't want to be seen for any reason, you can just stop your video. You can even change your name on your screen, so you are not recognizable at all. And what I want to say is that the next meeting with Diego Mateus, our chief conductor, should be a bit earlier. So we will start at 5:30 on Wednesday, because Diego has a rehearsal at 7. So we have to anticipate a little bit. And yeah, as you know, these 5 meetings with Patrizia, with Tony Lopresti, Diego Mateus, Julian Racklin, and Monio Vadia are 5 meetings where we are asked to listen to the story, to the journey, to the personal journey of our 5 protagonists. But as we got to know already on Saturday in the meeting with Patrizia, this is a journey, a travel which is touching and is about everybody and all of us as human beings, as musicians. One of the points to make this journey all together was to find out for every one of our heroes, our protagonists, a main theme, a main character, a main characteristic which can be really personified from each of them. And as we understood, the word for Patrizia was the talent, because of her capacity to discover and touch the talent of people and make alive the talent of many people. Of course, every of these fantastic protagonists has many of these aspects. And for Tony, apart from the talent, from everything we will discover, we thought that since Tony is an actor of the silence, acting with his body, not talking, but just seeing the essence of people, to create something with the essence of people and with his own essence, the word vision was the most appropriated to explain or to travel through his personal journey. Tony is a very dear friend, first of all, but he's a very dear friend because we met many, many years ago, already 11 years ago. This was his first time at the festival Musica sull'Acqua. And it was like when you say in Italian, colpo di fulmine. When you got in love with somebody at the first time you see somebody, and you feel something very clear and evident. And this because Tony has exactly this capacity of seeing in the essence of people. Tony, it is not only, or he has been not only a mime, I think he is a mime, but he is more than that. And at first, in the artistic field, he was working as director of radio in New York, a radio which was broadcasting in many, many different languages. Then, of course, he became a mime, and he became the executive director of the New York Pantomime Theater for many years. And then he went through another adventure and following another way, another story. And he became the director of the video production of the New York Police Department. So this richness of his artistic and human capacity to communicate, I think it's something very important to all of us to listen better to our capacities, our possibilities, since we have many, many talents inside ourselves. So I'm very happy to welcome you, Tony, and please, we are together with you now.
Thank you very much, Francesco. It's difficult sometimes to listen to such kind words. I appreciate that very much. And I thank you, and I thank Benedetta, the festival staff and administration, the Hilti Foundation, which supports the MACH Orchestra. I want to thank you all very much for asking me to be part of this series and to be part of such an amazing group of accomplished artists. It's very touching and it's very humbling. This series, what is this series that we are doing? It's called The Hero's Journey. I'm not sure I know exactly the hero's journey, but together I think we'll explore that. I'm going to refer to notes. You can see that already. I'm looking down at my notes. I won't try to pretend that I have something memorized, because that's also not the spirit of what the festival is trying to do here. And I don't have charts or photos for you to look at. So unfortunately, you're going to be forced to look just at me the whole time. But I think that after a while, you'll get used to that. At least I hope so. If not, you can turn off the video for me and just listen. Okay. And I hope you don't turn off the audio also. If you want to ask a question or make a comment, let the meeting host and the staff know, and we'll try to work that in. Now, the series, Hero's Journey, you use the word hero and you think, oh wow, that can't be me. A hero, that can't be me. I'm not a hero. But in this context, I think hero is a searcher, someone who is seeking what? Truth, self, love, art. And I think maybe truth, self, love, art, maybe they all come from the same place. Maybe they are the different faces of our inner life. So if you find one, maybe you find all of them. Some of you know some of you I know. I mean, there are many of you I don't know. And you might see me and think, oh, he's old and he represents the festival. So maybe he's wise. I should listen to him. Or you might think, oh, he's old. What does he know? Why should I even bother listening to him? Well, maybe both of those are true. But one thing I think is very clear, at least to me, is our souls, your soul, my soul, are all the same age. Because how can you impose time? How can you impose age on something that is eternal? My topic, as Francesco said, is vision. First, I don't think you choose your vision. I think the vision chooses you. I think vision is not something you see. I think vision is something that you feel. You're moving towards something, but the shape, the contours, they're never clear. Where you're moving toward is not clear. Only where your feet are planted at this particular time, maybe it looks clear around you. But where you're going, like when you're walking in a fog, it's not clear. Your foot steps on something, you stumble, you trip, you look here, maybe that's where I'm going, maybe there, but it all looks the same. Nothing looks exactly as it should be. You don't know where to move, how to move. All you know is that you have to move, so you move. And where you're going, it's never a straight line. And it might not seem ever to be in the right direction. My favorite line from theater is from a play by Edward Albee. It's called Zoo Story. And the play is a very dark and humorous examination of isolation, loneliness, miscommunication, and dehumanization in a materialistic world. Let me look at that again. Isolation, loneliness, miscommunication, and dehumanization in a materialistic world. Now, does that sound maybe a little bit familiar to the world we're living in right now? There are two men in this play. Peter is a kind of upper class gentleman who works in the publishing business, and he's in Central Park, and he's sitting on a bench and he's reading. And Jerry comes and interrupts him and tells him that he has come from the zoo in Central Park. He tells him the things he sees, and he insists on speaking to Peter. And Peter wants nothing to do with him. Jerry is he describes himself as a permanent transient, somebody who has no place to be. And at one point, while Peter is trying to ignore him, Jerry insists that Peter listen to him. And he says to him, sometimes you have to go a long way out of your way to come back a short distance correctly. Sometimes you have to go a long way out of your way, long way in that you didn't want to go, in order to come back a very short distance in the correct direction. And that's always been my very, very favorite line from theater. And it has always been a beacon for me. And that sums up for me the hero's journey as I understand it. And I think as I have experienced it, it's not a straight line. It's not starting at a beginning, like at the beginning of a race. You run a fixed course and you reach the end and that's it. The hero's journey goes in many different directions, starts and finishes in many different places. But I think the vision begins with a call, not the call, not the ultimate call, because I think there are many calls, but there's only one first call. So what I'm going to share with you is not a method. I'm not going to outline a series of steps for you to take so that at the end you can say, you've arrived at the destination just like Tony said I would. In fact, if that were true, if that could happen, you wouldn't arrive at your destination. You'd arrive at my destination. That doesn't help you at all. It doesn't help me either. So I'm simply sharing with you the story of my own series of stumbles, of falling, of tripping on my way toward what I know I have not yet fully realized in myself, maybe a little bit, but certainly not fully. And there are multiple stages of the journey. You never get there. You never arrive. As Patricia said on Saturday, the journey always changes. And when the journey stops changing, that means that you're dead, physically dead. But I also wonder if maybe even then, on some new level, the journey continues. So where does the journey begin? And what marks each of the changes in the journey? You know you've begun when you realize that you have said an inner yes. Often your ears hear yourself saying that yes, even as you are conscious of your brain preparing yourself to say no. There's something in you that overcomes the brain that says, no, 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 I can't do that. I won't go there. I won't go there. But something pulls that yes out of you without you even realizing. Where and when was my first yes? I grew up in a working class neighborhood on the edge of the southwest part of Philadelphia. My grandparents had come to the United States from two small villages near Messina in Sicily. My parents were members of the local Catholic parish, and I became an altar boy, an altar server, when I was in the 5th grade, when I was about 10 years old. Our pastor was Monsignor Lalou, a very old man who really had a very medieval mindset. But I mean that in a really good way. He would have been very, very at home during the medieval era. But he had this sense of pageantry in our liturgies, that the sense of story and costume that harkened back to a time centuries and centuries before. We were taught by my first mentor, who was a priest by the name of Father Hallman. He taught us what everything meant in these amazing pageants. Our liturgies for holy days were magnificent. The procession would start with girls in white dresses, sprinkling flower petals on the floor. There were about 30 altar boys, servers in different roles, all dressed in different costumes. And then at the end of the procession, there were grown men with big hats with feathers and swords. And it was a magnificent presentation. It was just something that was very, very engaging, especially for a young person. For this one special liturgy, I was one of 6 torchbearers. Torchbearers each carried a very big brass candlestick with a very, very large lit candle, right? And we entered and we went to separate sides of the altars in front of the side altars, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. We wore a white gown and a red cape with gold fringe, a matching red sash, a very stiff collar, and a white tie that was folded under the collar so you only saw the knot of the tie. And except for the time that we entered and exit, we sat with our hands like this on our laps, pointed to our knees, and we sat perfectly still. And I remember a moment when everything seemed to get very, very quiet, and I could feel the light of the candle shining on my face. And I became very calm and filled with an overwhelming sense of silence, a sense that nothing else existed. And I thought then that what I wanted was to be in that powerful emotional world of silence forever. Now, it seemed like a long time, but I'm sure it was just 1, maybe 2 seconds that moment lasted. But to this day, I can feel it as if it's happening actually right now. That moment, it transformed me. I just didn't know it yet. So I continued in elementary school. I continued and rose in the ranks of acolytes until I became a master of ceremonies. Um, the, um, the master of ceremonies would give instructions to the priests about what to do, but always in Latin. So the priest didn't do anything until the master told them in Latin what to do. And I got that to do that once, even for the Cardinal Archbishop of Philadelphia. When I first spoke to him in Latin, he just kind of looked at me like he was really surprised. And then he settled in, and he waited for me to give him instructions before he would do anything. And for a young kid, that was kind of a lot of fun. My next yes was where I would go to secondary school. I wanted to go to a Jesuit school. At first, though, I didn't get accepted to that school. A neighbor and a friend of mine, of our family, who had gone to that school, was very upset. He did everything he could to try to get me into that school. But then I got an invitation from another school, a different school. I had taken the test for that school, but I had no intention of going there. And they invited me to go there. So I said yes to that. And that was another life-changing yes. The teachers were brothers, monks from the Order of Christian Brothers of Saint Jean Baptiste de La Salle. And in that experience, my mind was opened, and knowledge and new insights poured in. And by the time I completed my studies there, I believed that I wanted to live the life of the brothers who taught me there. And I said yes to entering the religious life. But that turned out to be the wrong yes. Before I finished school and before I entered the order, the provincial director sent me a message saying that my life would not be best expressed living among them. And my first reaction was relief, like, wow, I don't have to go down that road. I never remember meeting him, but he was obviously a very wise man who knew me better than I knew myself. So that yes led to a different path that I hadn't imagined, but that was already waiting for me. It was already there. So I began university as a psychology major, and for some reason I decided I wanted to become part of the student-run experimental theater group. They told me I had to write something during the holiday and present it to them in January. So I did that, and several weeks after I submitted that, they asked me for a meeting. I mean, I had never written anything for theater before. I had written in high school, but that was for the newspaper. That was news, it was opinions, but never anything theatrical. So when I had the meeting, the first thing they said, "Did you really write this?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Did you really write it over the holiday?" And I said, "Yes." And then they said, "Well, we would like to produce it. Can you give us your permission?" So of course I said yes. And then I ended up spending my next 3 years with them, often working on short, funny bits that use no words. For my third year at university, I said yes to a very different path, said yes to leaving my school, my theater community, my family, and going to study at the bilingual university in Fribourg in Switzerland. There I met students from all over the world. The lingua franca was French. While I was there, I got really interested in photography, and I bought a camera and was offered the use of a darkroom. Now, some of you may not understand what a darkroom is, but that was a room that actually had no lights, was dark, and you used film. There was no digital photography then, and you had to put the film into containers in the dark and add chemicals and do all this. Everything was in the dark. And I had the experience of my consciousness. Usually we experience our consciousness here in this part of ourselves, but I experienced my consciousness moving from here to the tips of my fingers. So my experience of me, Tony, was not here anymore. It was here. Tony was living right there in the fingertips. And maybe as musicians, maybe sometimes you have a similar experience when consciousness moves to your hands or to your lips or to your voice. Maybe there's also an experience of someone who is blind where their consciousness moves to their ears. There was a time of political and military upheaval. I met students from countries that were actively or passively in conflict with the United States. I met students from countries who were in conflict with allies of the United States. In Fribourg, we all met in cafes and bars. We had meals together. We had parties together. We helped each other. We were friends. In the US, though, at the time, we still had involuntary conscription, a military draft. But how, I thought, could I go back to the United States and be forced to put on a uniform and then go fight and maybe even kill these very same people? So when I returned, I said yes to a different journey. I became a conscientious objector, one who will not serve militarily because of religious training and belief. It was a long, complicated, and very stressful process, but I succeeded with the help of mentors from 2 pacifist organizations. They guided me through this process, which included a trial. I had no representation at the trial, no witnesses, but pointed questions. They had prepared me very well for that. If I had not succeeded, I could have ended up in jail or being forced to leave the country and be an expatriate in Canada or in Sweden, like some of my friends actually had to do. So once the status was granted to me, I was forced to leave home like a soldier would leave home, to be far away from family so that you wouldn't be able to sleep at your home, have the wonderful meals that your mother cooks. And then you had to get a job that was called in the national interest. There was no definition of what the national interest was, except that you had to be far from home and you could earn only very little amount of money. So I had to put my theater aspirations behind me then and follow this different set of responsibilities. I said yes to a job at a hospital for children in Boston. I became a recreational therapist. Many of the children at the hospital suffered emotional and neurological disabilities, which usually led to extreme and sometimes violent behavior. My job was to teach them how to play together. One boy, when he became very anxious or upset, would bite his finger and hit himself on the head. He would do this very hard and very, very strong. And he did it so violently that often he would hurt himself. So one day, the group I was working with was so out of control that he got really, really nervous. And he started doing this very, very strongly, very badly. And he bit himself very badly. I couldn't get the group under control. And I lost my temper and I shouted at them very loudly. And without thinking about it, I did this too. And suddenly, everybody became very quiet. And I realized what I was doing. All the children looked at me with a bit of fear in their eyes. Oh no, was Tony going crazy too? They could accept extreme behavior in themselves, but only if they felt the safety of the limits that the adults imposed on them. But for a second, I'd lost my own sense of the limits. Then the boy who did this all the time, he looked at me and with a big grin on his face and his head tilted a little to one side, he made the gesture again, but very gently, as if to say, now you understand too. And that was the last time I ever saw that boy use that gesture. It left him. Continuing that civilian service, I then moved to another job in Boston. Was a community program serving the same kind of children who did not yet need to be hospitalized. They were still in school, they still lived with their families, but many of those families had different degrees of dysfunction. My job was to help them run the after-school program and to accompany the female therapists when they went to speak with the parents, so that the fathers would have a male figure who they perhaps could relate to. Now, at the time, I had a full beard. I had long hair. Now, when my hair got long, it didn't go long straight. My hair went like this, right? And I rode a motorcycle. So when I arrived at the homes, it was with my helmet under my arm and my leather jacket, to the fathers, maybe I looked maybe a little bit cool, you know. Our supervisor, a psychiatrist, asked me if I wanted to play with the video machines that many of the therapists and psychologists had purchased, but didn't know what to do with. So I said yes. I began experimenting with video to treat the children and their families, to make videos about our programs and to attract children and their families to the work that we were doing. And it started to work. It started to become successful. After a few years, I decided I wanted to work in television production. And I tried to find work in television, but I couldn't succeed. Nothing was happening. But a woman I had met when I was a volunteer at a political campaign in Boston said that her mother was a consultant with a radio station in New York, a radio station that broadcast in 17 different languages. And they were looking for somebody who could speak a few different languages and who had some facility with a very new kind of machine that they were introducing called a computer, right? So it was the first computer being used at this particular radio station. And she asked if I would be interested in exploring that possibility. So yes, I again said yes. I was terrified because it wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't television, but it was in New York and it was broadcasting. So I did it. I had the title of program director and operations manager, and I had a really good salary and a really nice apartment, and I was only 25 years old. So it was a nice life. It was an amazing adventure that led to meeting world leaders, funny, touching characters from old New York theater, and many political and labor leaders. Now, for those of you who are Italian, this might be really interesting. The head of the Italian programming his real name was Renzo Cohen. Renzo, a Jew, escaped from Italy around the time of World War II, when things were getting very difficult for Jews all over Europe. He settled in New York, but he knew that with a name like Renzo Cohen, he would never get a job in broadcasting in the US to the Italian population in New York. Cohen is the Hebrew word for priest. So Renzo changed his name from Cohen to Sacerdoti. So he became Renzo Sacerdoti, and then he was able to get a job in radio, became a big celebrity in that community. Now his journey was an interesting hero's journey. But my high-flying days as a young broadcast executive came crashing down in less than a year because due to some difficult business environment and some difficult decisions, the station had to sell the AM band and my job was eliminated. So that was a real blow to me on many levels, not just financial, but I had to move to a less nice apartment and then actually to a much lesser apartment in a very difficult neighborhood. And I felt totally without roots, totally lost. I realized in some ways, abandoned my call. I had said many yeses, but none of them, I realized, fully embraced my heart. None of the yeses really reflected that moment when I was a torchbearer and I knew I wanted to live in this great, powerful silence. I had done so many things, but none through silence. I didn't know who I was anymore. I could have leveraged my experience in radio and other things to try to find radio and television work in other cities, which is how you did it. You went to other cities and then eventually came back to New York. But my goal wasn't to be in radio or television. So that path made no sense to me. I had no idea what to do, and I became very sad and very depressed. Had all my yeses been said to tricksters who had deceived me? Had I been the deceiver all along? Had I been my own trickster? One night I found myself at a party. I was invited by a musician who played in the annual Mostly Mozart Festival at Lincoln Center, and by his wife, who was a coloratura soprano. I was sitting with the soprano and I was miserable. And she looked at me and said, "Well, what do you really want to do?" And I don't know where the words came from, but I heard myself say to her that I wanted to perform as an actor without using any words. I surprised myself and I thought, maybe I said something stupid. And very calmly she said, "Oh, well, I know someone you should study with." I was really surprised. There were people who taught this. I didn't know. I had no idea. So I went to study with the person she recommended, but after 2 weeks, the teacher said to me, "You shouldn't be studying with me. I know someone who would be better for you." My first thought was that I had failed. But I went to the other teacher, and after 2 days, the teacher said, "You shouldn't be studying with me." Now I really felt awful, and I felt I was really, really bad. I was not any good. And he said, "You should study with Moni and Mina Yakin." I didn't know who they were, but I soon learned. They were classmates with Marcel Marceau, and they all studied in Paris under Etienne Decroux, who codified classical mime into a system that could be taught and to be passed on from one generation to the next. Now, I almost didn't go to Moni and Mina's studio, but I gathered my courage and I went, and I enrolled for just a few classes, fearing that after a few days, they too would tell me to go someplace else. 10 minutes after the first class began, I knew I had arrived home. And I stayed for almost 10 years. The same feeling I had in the darkroom in Switzerland took over. My consciousness moved from behind my eyes to whatever part of my body was being trained at the moment, whether it be my hand or my head. We produced marvelous productions, full-length theater without any words. It was exactly where I wanted to be. Profound, moving, funny productions that bypassed the intellectual filters and went directly to the gut, to the seat of our feelings. Now, in some cases, in some audiences, some people got very angry. That's because they didn't want their intellect to be bypassed. They didn't want to be touched directly. So sometimes we got standing ovations, but these people would walk out angry. It was really a very interesting experience to learn that. I have to tell one story that would become important many years later. My childhood best friend, we met at our parish as acolytes, and we remain dear friends to this day, became a member of the ecumenical monastic community in Taizé in France. And some of you may know of that community. The founder of the community, Brother Roger, I went to visit my friend when he became a monk. The founder asked me to do a mime shop for the young brothers, the new brothers, so that they would have a better understanding of their bodies during their prayer. And I thought that was a very progressive, very interesting idea. So I did it, and the young brothers really seemed to enjoy it. They really liked it. We had a good time. Now, at the time in the US, the audience for mime was going up and up and up and up. And it was very popular. They couldn't get enough people like us to do things. And then just as quickly, it fell down. It ended. Everything stopped. And the mime company fell apart. I was devastated. I had nowhere to turn. I tried for a while to work with a female partner doing shows that were part speaking, part silent, but it worked for a while, but not for long. I never liked performing alone, so I didn't pursue that road. I did small roles in movies, some big roles in publicities, what we call commercials. But nothing was really satisfying. Nothing fit together. I was in mourning. I was grieving. And I mourned and grieved for much more than 20 years. During that time, I said a different kind of yes. I got married. We had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Now I had the responsibility of fatherhood. I got freelance jobs as a writer, occasional television commercial, but all of my focus now is on my family. And I love the early years of my children's lives. Those years before they became verbal, before they spoke, when you communicate with them through your eyes, through your gestures and your movements, and with your rhythms. So much was going on in those tiny bodies, those growing brains, those precious souls. Their eyes locked on me and stayed on me, penetrating to my depths, seeking from me everything I could give to them. Your body never lies. Children know from your body if you love them or if you are a threat to them. You can see it in their eyes and in the ways their little bodies react. You can see the joy in their bodies by the unrestrained movements that they can't yet control. And you can see and feel their fear and tension if something makes you upset, like an unexpected expense, an argument, a job that didn't happen. They absorb your mood. They become what you feel. During that time, I worked many freelance jobs, mostly as a writer. I won a good contract with the agency that runs the public transportation system in New York, the buses, the subways, and the commuter rails. I wrote all kinds of things. I wrote signs for why the station was closed for repairs, letters to people who were complaining that the trains weren't on time, reports, that kind of thing. One day I overheard a conversation, a colleague on the phone saying that he had a lot of videos to do. He didn't know anything about video. He needed help. So when he hung up, I apologized for listening, but told him that I do video. So he asked me immediately to accompany him to our project director's office, the office of our boss. And the boss said that he remembered that there was video on my CV. And he asked me if I would like to work on some videos for the man who had just been hired to lead the transit police department, the police who at the time patrolled the subways. And my answer, of course, was yes. And he said to me, "Go home." What? Did I say something wrong? Did I lose this opportunity already? Go home, he said, and change into work clothes and shoes with hard soles, because tonight you're going into the subway tunnels. Be there at 8 o'clock. Okay. The chief of the transit police, William Bratton, he liked the video and asked me to help him make more. We made a video about the special group of police who deal with homeless people. At the time, there were over 5,000 homeless people living in the tunnels of the subway. And these people, these police officers, male and female, they were saints. They got to know all these people, and they did everything they could to get them out of the subways and into shelter, into services, and into programs that would help build their lives back again. So Bratton asked me to make more videos for him, and that opened up a world I would never have known about. And he enabled me to see the good that can be done when policing is done correctly, and how much damage could be done when it is not. His invitation to help him led to 27 years of making videos for law enforcement agencies and for the New York Police Department, the NYPD, which Bratton led twice. I made about 3,500 videos, mostly for training, for motivation, for internal and external communications. My video crews were all police officers and detectives who were also professional video producers. I made many videos that used no words, just video and music. Those were very satisfying. I made videos to help police carry out their duties with compassion and with a professional demeanor. And I mostly met amazing people who truly took the job to make the world a better place and to help people. I saw things most people never would even think about or realize. I saw the good and I saw the tragic. And tragedy touched my squad on 9/11 when one of the police officers working for me, he was a wonderful, magnificent cameraman, where he was killed in the collapse of the South Tower. And on that day, many other friends died. And since then, many friends have died from 9/11 related illnesses. I saw heroes save people. I saw police families grieving at the funerals of loved ones who lost their lives in the line of duty too many times. I saw life sometimes raw, sometimes tense, sometimes funny, always real. But under it all, I still mourned for the Mime Theater. One day I took a holiday from my duties at the NYPD and traveled with my family to Europe, and we visited my friend in Taizé. The new prior, who had been one of the young brothers many years before in my mime workshop, asked me if I would do a workshop for the young people who were visiting. And I didn't think I could do that. I hadn't taught a mime workshop in many, many years. And my brain was thinking of all the responses of why I could not do this. While my brain was planning all of these answers, all of these no's, I heard my voice say, yes, I'll do it. I was filled with a kind of panic and also joy at the same time. What was I going to do? And whatever I was going to do, I hoped that I would enjoy it. They would bring me that profound satisfaction. Well, the workshop did go well. I was invited back the following year to do it again. And at that time, one of the brothers told me he was friends with some people in Italy who had a music festival on the shores of Lake Como. The festival gave workshops in different art forms to young people to give them the experience of many different artistic disciplines. They were looking for someone to teach a physical theatrical form. He asked if I would be interested. What did I say? Yes. The next day, the brother spoke with me again and said he had spoken with his friends and that they wanted me to join them at the next festival in 2009, and would I go? Of course, yes. And here I am. From that day in 2007 in Taizé, when I said that one little yes that I was so frightened to say, my life as a mime has been resurrected. So much that I couldn't continue my video job anymore. So I left that job to devote myself again full-time to mime, to silence, to exploring the physical possibilities of human behavior, emotion, and stories. And to join you for this special event. And along the way, I've had mentors whom I didn't know, I didn't realize that they were mentors for me. And each of them provided me an opportunity to say yes. And that yes led to a path that for me didn't seem like it was coming to a conclusion. But now, maybe for the first time, I feel that I at least am on the right journey, the right path in this journey. And I'd like to end with two quotations. One is often attributed to the American humorist Mark Twain, but it's probably not. Nobody really knows who said this, but the quote is, "The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day when you find out why." And several years ago at the festival, we produced a mime opera version of The Little Prince, Il Piccolo Principe. Near the end, the fox says to the little prince, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." So now please feel free to ask me any questions or to offer any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So we can feel free to talk to Tony, to ask whatever we want and we feel. For me, it's very touching, everything, because we experience so much together. And I know many of the parts of your journey, of your life journey. We spoke many times about many things we felt before knowing each other, after knowing each other, and what we dreamt together, what we had the vision together to do. But it's always very enriching and inspiring, deeply inspiring to be in touch with you and to listen to you, to share with you. And always I say, when we started our collaboration even deeper, now with Tony we have a project with the mime and violin together, and what we was moving this decision, this need to do something together from my side, was that I wanted to spend more time with you, because I felt that it was good for me to spend time with you. It was healthy for me. And so it's nice that still today I feel very healthy in this moment of your voice and your soul and sharing. And I'm so happy that we can get to know you more deeply after the meeting we had last year, which was very fun, and these 2 hours of work with you, even very tiring, because we were in the middle of the week and doing everything, every second of the day for 7 days was really a bit crazy, but we love to do crazy things in this festival and generally. So it's like this, and so I'm very happy that now we have the chance to get something more, even more from you, and what was your path, which is always very important, I think.
Well, thank you, Francesco, because I say all those things about you, when I first came to the festival, I was absolutely terrified. It was a huge responsibility, and also I was terrified, not so much of the responsibility, but when you're faced with what brings you your own joy, it's terrifying, because you're afraid that you'll not achieve it, that you'll not grasp it, that it'll squeeze itself out of your hands like water drips out of your hands. So it was, for me, in many ways, a terrifying moment, because what if what seemed to be represented in that first encounter with you and with the festival and with all of the people involved and all the musicians and the young people, um, what if it was a total disaster? What if it was a failure? What if I didn't have it together? And I think those are the things that we always struggle with, especially artists, because we work to stay sensitive, to be open, and I can't begin to speak about what it is to be a musician, but with mime, it's about being open to life and expressing life through physical rhythms. Perhaps that's similar to what a musician does, being open to life and expressing it through musical rhythms. But what I learned was, in the first year, was that yes, every single time you approach something, just like me approaching this today, there's an element of terror, of absolute terror, that it's going to be a disaster, that it's not going to work, that you're going to just stumble all over everything. I think that's the challenge also that we face. That's part of our journey. That's the dragon, that's the demon that we meet on this journey. It's part of what we have to overcome. And when we slay that dragon, when we overcome that demon, and that's when we begin to taste the subtle joy that lies at the heart of what all of us are trying to do.
Tony, there is a question to you from Diana, which you know very well.
I think so.
Can you talk a little bit about the students that apps have worked with at the festival? In the first year, there were an amazing group of young people who became accomplished mime actors. How was the process important to you?
Wow. That's a profound question. I felt this incredible gift that all of the young people who participated that year gave to me. And for some reason that I don't understand, but I'm very happy about, they got very involved in what we were doing and wanted to do more. Because they were already in the world of music, because they were already tasting their first appetizers of art, because they were beginning their journeys in their own disciplines. They had the capacity to do things that were extremely difficult, and to be able to relate it to their music, and to be able to relate it to their lives, and to be able to see how these rhythms could express a whole new world to people. They have profoundly touched me every single year. Several of them have continued from that first year through today. I have had the privilege of performing with them now that they are adults. And they blow me away because they are so strong and so profound in their capacity to understand their bodies and to understand their hearts, and to let their souls shine through that. On stage with them, I am just stunned, and it draws from me. They draw from me the best that I can do at that moment. I'm no longer teaching them. They are pulling from me, the asking me essentially on stage to do better, to go further, to go deeper. And those relationships, I pray, will never, never go away. I am privileged and profoundly delighted and joyful about those. Thank you for that question, Diane. That was made me really think about those wonderful people who started, some as children, some as young adults, and who now are grown in their own professions, but always take the time and the effort to walk back on a stage with me, and I love it. I'd like to ask some of the participants what their stumbles have been in their journeys as artists. Where have they seemed or felt that they were on the wrong way? Because my story basically is about a lot of what seemed like wrong ways. But if I hadn't taken all those wrong ways, I would never have ended up here. I mean, everything was there because I had to walk down those paths. There was no direct way from the time that I first experienced that profound silence as a 10-year-old to today. There was no direct way there. So I would like to know from some of the participants what their twists and turns have been, and what did they feel in them kept them going and got them to where they are now, which is not the last place that they'll be, but where it got them now. Nobody's going to take me up on that question. Somebody's got to take me up on that. There's no wrong answer here. As much as I explained that so many times I felt that I was wrong, that was a false conclusion.
Okay, so
okay.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Fermin, okay.
Yes. Hello.
From Spain, yes?
First of all, it was really interesting, everything you were talking about your life.
Thank you.
It was really inspiring. Thanks so much. Yeah. So yeah, I also had some kind of waves, let's say, in my life. And yeah, you were asking what was moving for me, right? Like, I think it was moving like, because as you say, I think I had experienced that day of, I knew I want to be a musician. And even in the really, really bad moments, I was thinking on that day, and I say, yeah, but if in that day I thought I want to become a musician, that will be for something. I don't know why, but I cannot explain with words. It's just that. So then I was keep going and try to find solutions. Sometimes also you see the problems, you have problems, and then they're much smaller or bigger than you think, or yeah. So try to share with others. I think it was helping me a lot, because I don't have brothers, I don't have sisters, I don't have, my family is really small. So I'm kind of really intimate and really, I'm really social, but in a way I'm also, with my personal things, I'm really close. Mm-hmm. So it was helping me to really, to see the opinion on others, because they will say like, wow, but that is really important, let's say, oh yes, so it's important, and then go to that person, because I know that can help you better than me, or as you say, also like keep going. And and a good decisions also to be with good people, I think is really important and positive, and to choose the right people, I think is really important in your life. So.
Yeah, and to realize sometimes that the choice of people maybe are right for them for a while, but then not forever.
Your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can I ask you something a little bit more?
Yeah.
If you can go a little bit deeper into what was the moment that you realized that you were to be a musician?
Actually, I don't have any musician in my family, so it's kind of strange why I want to become a musician. And my parents told me since I was a child I was going to see the classical concert, and my parents, they were getting really bored because they never listened. So it was quite strange, like this child, why he's touching this music. I don't know. We don't understand, no? And it was one concert, actually, not the more important concert, or not the more beautiful hall, or not even the more beautiful repertoire, but I felt some connection. I was saying I want to live this connection always. I don't know.
Wow.
And that was really, I don't know, it was not fear, no, it was like completely in another state, let's say. And I think that it keeps moving always to try to reach again that moment, let's say. And that, yeah.
Thank you, Fermin. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
And thank you for letting me delve a little deeper into
No,
your
thanks.
story.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Can I delve into your stories a little bit more deeply? Lorenzo Bodan Miami? Is that correct? No? Can you tell? Go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, it's Neve.
Neem.
Neve, like a V sound.
Oh, Neve. Neve, that's, oh, wonderful. Neve, where are you from?
I'm from Ireland.
Ireland. Okay. And what was your moment of realization that what was your call? What was the moment that called you to music?
Actually, I first wanted to be a filmmaker when I was like 15 or 16. And then it was kind of just like I had to choose between studying film and music, and I said, oh, I'll study music because I know it better. But there's a recording of a really famous violinist, Maxim Vengerov. He's one of the most famous violinists, and he's playing the Chaconne by Bach, which is also a really famous piece. And I was watching it one day, and he's playing at a lower pitch, a baroque pitch, which it just sounds a bit more different, a bit more. I don't have the words to describe it, but just really, really hit me. And I remember I cried. I listened to it and I cried, and I thought, I have to do that. You know, there's nothing else I can do.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And you were 15?
At that stage, maybe I was about 17.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of, I wasn't sure. I had no reason to study music, but then I thought, yeah, I don't need a reason. I just want to.
Good. Good for you. Good for you. That's very courageous, because I'm sure that there are plenty of people in this in the music business who would tell you, oh, if you hadn't started when you were 4, you can't do this. But I think that passion and your own depth of feeling can carry you very far. Are you pleased with what you're doing?
Yeah, actually, I have had a few twists and turns along the way since then, and now I'm going more in the direction of improvising and not like strictly classical, but yeah, I'm definitely pleased.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Something came on the screen, but I couldn't read it fast enough. So, are you a violinist, Neve?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
improvisational violin. That's really interesting. I saw no, there's another quote I saw just the other day from a friend who is a singer and a voice teacher. And it's a quote from Miles Davis, the American jazz musician, who said, it takes a long time to learn to play like yourself.
Mm. Makes sense.
So keep at it, Neve. All of you, keep at it. Any other aha moments? Who else would like to share their the moment of their call when they realized that they were being called to be a musician? There's Lorenzo, Neve, Anderson, Anna. Is there other? Oh, look at all these additional people on the other screen. Aimon, Francesca, Ilaria, Bodan, Ludovico,
Hello.
Daniele. Hello, who's speaking?
Lorenzo.
Lorenzo. Oh, great. There you are.
First of all, thank you for your story. It was really interesting. Kind of a lot to process, but thank you, really. And yeah, for me, I feel like I would chime in just to explain how I felt. In my case, it's a bit of a different situation from one where there was a specific moment. I remember my parents told me that back when I was a child, I used to go with them in classical concerts. My mother is a flute teacher, so she is quite. She made a point of making us listen to a lot of classical music, me and my sister. And I usually behaved like most children normally do at concerts. But there was one occasion they told me where I think it was the Souvenir de Florence, a performance of the sextet. And in that case, they told me I was glued to, not to my seat, to the seat in front of me with my hands looking at the performance, and I wouldn't make a sound. And I think I was a bit like around 3 years old. And around the same time, I asked for my first violin. But there is an issue here, because this episode I just told you about is something I don't remember. And I honestly can't really feel it as something that is mine, in a sense. And so my life with the violin has been a lot of ups and downs, but somehow I already know that what I'm doing right now is not exactly what I would like to do, because I know I'm still trying to find that out. So I'm in this strange position where I know there are some elements that I would really like to keep. I know music is something that I kind of need as a person with sometimes difficulties to communicate emotional states. It's really it's kind of an impressive way to feel them and communicate them, and also receive them in a sense during performances from others. So there's that, but it's all a sort of process. There weren't any precise moments where I felt this is what I would like to do. Most in all the performances I've listened to, all the recordings, usually they reinforce my feelings on this matter, but it's always very dynamic in a sense. And I also know that there are several things of which I'm not satisfied from a really basic artistic level, and I would like to realize what it is that I need to change in order to be satisfied. So yeah, it's kind of a journey.
Mm-hmm. But your journey, you see it still as on the path of music with your violin. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, but
Okay.
there are several other things that I would like to follow, but this would be the main thing, and I would like to see how I can make it branch out to reach the other things that for now may feel separate, but they don't have necessarily got to be, perhaps.
Do you want to share anything about what those other paths are?
It's a bit difficult because there are a lot of interests that I have that I only pursued very superficially, and it's difficult to, as I said, it's a process. I'm still in the process of selecting which ones I would like to deepen more and link to my main thing, which would be music. But yeah, there's, I suppose I took an interest in psychology after starting my own therapy sessions, and I am very interested in video games. I have been for a long time, and in general, I am also interested in social issues, economical issues. So I would like to see if I can make it somehow come together with the other things I am doing. But I am still trying to understand how I may be able to do that.
Okay. We should be in touch later through Francesco and Benedetta, because I have someone who you may be interested in being in contact with about that.
Oh,
about the social issues. Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Very interesting man doing some really interesting work. So, but that's wonderful. And you know, if I've learned anything, I've learned that all these are like mirrors, reflections of different aspects of our inner life, different faces, like I said at the beginning, different faces of our inner life. And I think that the process of the art, the process of living, is to integrate those different faces into one new, beautiful face. Sometimes parts of it fall off and are replaced by other parts. Sometimes we go through a path and it gets put to the side. But I would encourage you not to abandon anything until you know that that's not for you. Allow yourself the sometimes disorienting possibility of living in all of those places at once. And I think that if you do that, you only become richer as a person and as an artist. And that all of those things, I mean, I don't think, if I'm doing anything right as a mime now, I don't think I could be doing it if I didn't have all those other experiences to draw from that have formed me in different ways. So don't be afraid of any of that. And, you know, sometimes you'll dive into one for a longer time than you thought you would. That's okay. That's okay. It's always going to inform what ultimately is your art.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being part of this and for sharing some of it. Anybody else have a moment or a deviation from their path that they would like to share with the others? Either the moment where you heard the call, where you said your first yes. I mean, we say many yeses, but I was very struck by you only say the first yes once. And that is a profound place to be. So anybody have any first yeses or any deviations from the path that surprised you? That frightened you? That gave you joy? Joy is very hard. It's easy for us as an actor, I can say this, that it's very easy on stage to portray grief and sadness. It's extremely difficult to portray joy. It really is. Many people in their daily lives, when they have a joyful experience, they cry. That's pretty astonishing. That says something about how we're made, about what kind of creature we are, that the most profound joy brings on the same expression as grief. I don't have an answer to that. I just thought I'd share that. It's a very hot day in New York City. It's 33 degrees here. At 11 in the morning, it was 33 degrees. Right now, we are probably, what time are we? We're at 1:30, 13:30 in New York. You're getting close to your mealtime in Europe. I hope that it's a lovely day for you. We have so far had a glorious summer as far as the weather is concerned in New York. Unfortunately, like every one of you, we've been dealing with this terrible pandemic, which I think your countries and New York City and New York State in particular have begun to handle very well. Other places, not so much. And this can provide all kinds of additional stresses and dislocations. Obviously, we're doing this on screens because we're all dislocated. We can't be together to do this in person, which would be wonderful and beautiful. And I yearn for the day when we can do that again. But I wish you all very well in this really difficult time. If you have anything to say about how this time has expanded your possibilities, your thinking about what you do, or how the limitations on what you do have affected you, if you want to share that with your fellow MACH participants, that would be wonderful. No takers on that one? Okay, I'm going to shift. I'm leaning forward. I want to shift the screen if I can see other names. See if I can. Okay. We still have good attendance. That's wonderful. You're all very committed to the process because you're all still here, and I appreciate that very much. Yes. Is somebody speaking? Is that Anderson Gutierrez?
Yeah.
Yes? Ah, good. Thank you,
Yeah.
Anderson. Welcome. Good to meet you.
Thank you.
Or did we meet last year?
No. I
Okay.
went there 2 years ago.
Ah, okay.
First of all, thank you so much. It's a very inspiring moment and very with a lot of spots to think on, and yeah, to go farther in the journey, let's say. Now I just wanted to say, I mean, in context of the pandemic, and it's a very, very difficult situation for everybody, as we all know, and it's for me it represents a really like a crisis for the world, let's say, and the humanity. But even more than, because in this moment I find it really, there are like two phases, and we all have problems, and we all have even more problems with this situation than if it wouldn't be like that. But at the same time, I find it's a time where we can learn a lot about ourselves and about our relationships with the other people, and in general with nature and with art. And I just wanted to because, well, let's say I'm in right now I'm from Colombia, but I'm living in Switzerland, and in Switzerland there's a quiet privilege in this situation, because we can go outside and it's quite relaxed, everything, like the whole development of the situation in comparison with other places, of course. And when I see, for example, my family in Colombia or my friends in Colombia, and I hear all the commentaries, and I understand all of the attitudes, like, now it's really a problem, and it is. But in the same time, I think this crisis we can learn a lot of them. And I just wanted to now that you spoke about it, I just wanted to expand on kind of invitation to learn of it, because we can also take we all have I mean, I already saw like 2 or 3 times we have a lot of problems because of it, but we also can improve many things, or change some things or just learn from it to make our journey better, or like to come again in the direction, or even better, or anyway, yeah, just to take the point to learn of it.
People my age are very dependent on people your age right now, because many people in my generation built a world that in large part doesn't work. And I think that all of you have had an amazing insight as you're growing, to see the things that aren't working, to see how the injustices and the inequalities, and you rightly recognize that doesn't have to be, and your insights and your energies, I have full faith will bring us to a better world. In the 1960s, I was probably a little younger than you, in the 1960s, maybe 70s. In this country, there was tremendous upheaval and protests, and we managed to change many things for the better. I was a young generation, and I was out in the streets, and now as the older generation still out in the streets, but it's the young people who bring the hope and bring the energy, because you see things with a new vision. Obviously, today's topic is vision. You have a new vision of the world, and you see what the world can be when, for example, the environmental elements that you mentioned. The air is cleaner, the waters are cleaner. There are just about 10 days ago, there was a video of a sperm whale breaching, jumping out of the water in New York Harbor.
Yeah.
That had never happened in my lifetime. That had never been. But with nature recovering itself, we see what can be, and we can see that there are new ways, different ways. We don't. The people who keep wanting for everything to become normal, I think it's a big mistake. Somebody in Italy, I don't know who it is, posted a very wonderful post on Instagram. It was, "Si tutto tornerà come prima, aspettatevi che tutto ritornerà come adesso." If everything goes back to the way it was, you can be certain that everything will go back to the way it is. So we absolutely can't. And it's up to you, through your art, through your energy, through your commitment, through your work in social and political causes. You're the ones who are going to lead the way. I will gladly follow you. I'll follow you anywhere you go.
Yeah. Abopat was also telling in an interview in February or in April, I think. He was asked about the pandemic, and he was telling it would teach us in a painful way how to behave and how to how to deal with the life in general, and how to deal with our relationship, not only with the environment, but also between each other.
Yes.
But the thing is that we need to take the point to learn of it, and in that sense, we, like the young generations, are also dependent on your generation, because you have the experience, and in the measure that we hear, and we stay open, as you said, we stay open to life, and to learn of it. We can also learn a lot, and to take your experience and the experience of your generation, like to make it work.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Tony,
Yes.
I have a question for you. Since
Okay.
this topic that we just spoke about, it's very actual and it's very important for nowadays and for everybody, artists, different kind of, everybody in the world. But how your language, not the English one, but the language of the of the mind, as was teaching you through the years something important to behave in life. Often I ask myself, how can my language, the music, my violin playing, teach me something important for my life, in relation with the people, in what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, how I'm reacting on what is happening. And this topic that we have to possibly came out from this or evolve from this moment in a different way. How your language, yes, gave to you some important impulse in this direction, since also you did so many ways in your life.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question, and my responses are going to be whatever has been firing off in listening to the question. The first thing I would say is something that Moni Yakin, my mentor, my teacher, my director in mime, what he used to say. He used to always say, make your problems your friends. That if you find a way to incorporate the things that are difficult, they will show you the way forward that you hadn't thought of before. Another thing that I was thinking about as you spoke, in terms of understanding and learning, what Moni used to always tell us was that there's no moment for a mime that he's not studying or working. It's not just the exercises in the studio, it's not the rehearsals in the theater, but in our daily life. So in New York, before all this happened, you were outside, there were all these people, you're on the subway packed close together with other people. And he used to say, look at people and try to put your body in the shape of that person that you're looking at. How does that person walk? How does that person move? How do they turn their head? And if you start to do that, you begin to experience the world as they do, because you are absorbing their physicality, their rhythm, their shape. When you take on a certain shape, it triggers different emotions. So for me, the learning and the discovery of where to go requires for me to absorb the energies of other people. Sometimes it's disturbing to do that. Sometimes it's delightful. But just that act of molding yourself in someone else's shape, walking slightly the way someone else might be walking. I would actually, New York is a, New York is a magnificent laboratory because there are so many different kinds of people here. And for the most part in our lives, we were shoved together in small confined spaces in the subway. The rich and the poor, every culture, every race, everybody at some point or other had to be in the subway. William Bratton, the police official that I spoke about, always used to say the symbol of New York should be the subway pole, because when you're holding on, when the train is moving, every hand is a different color, comes from a different place. And that multicolor hands on that pole, that's the symbol of New York City. So in that context, it's so rich to be able to observe people. That says something, even in good times, that was a somewhat stressful situation. So how were people dealing with the stress? How were people, sometimes people were happy in those situations. And sometimes we were reading a book and they were transformed and their bodies would change into what they were reading in the book, or listening to music and they would transform. And so molding oneself into the shape of other people is, gives me a sense of what the world around me is like and what people are feeling. There are physical exercises that you can do as an actor that will bring you to an emotion right away. The one that you might want to think about sometime if you ever want to experiment is to do this with your you see how my chin is coming out? If you do that and you stay there, you'll feel in your stomach the beginnings of anger. Right? Some actors learn, I have to remember when I had a horrible argument with my lover, and I have to remember that, and that's how I become angry in this scene. You don't have to do that. You just have to, off stage, you just have to go like this. Hold that for a few minutes and boom, you're angry. So that happens when you conform yourself to the people around you, the people you see around you, and you learn your environment that way. And that has always been transformative for me. And I've always been able to bring that back to the stage and to the studio. Does that answer your question at least a little bit, or did I go way off bounds?
No, it was, in the point, I think. For me, it was, clear.
Okay. You guys are a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun here. I thought I was gonna be petrified, but I'm having fun with you guys. Look at beautiful smiles on all these screens. It's terrific. Thank you. Thank you for offering your energy through this strange digital environment, but thank you for doing that. Any other comments? Any other questions? Any other thoughts about your work, our time, my work, the festival? Thank God for me for the festival. I thank God every day for the festival. Like I said, it resurrected my entire artistic life. And I'm happy to be able to share a little bit of that with all of you.
Tony, I have this other question for you.
Okay.
Even if we work together many times, I want to ask you, how is different to work with other mimes, so to interact with other performers which are using your language, and how it is inside yourself, the energy that you feel acting and interacting with other performers which are, for example, playing. And because, of course, I think you use, even in the past, many times the music in your performances, like accompaniment, but maybe not so many times live music. So in an interaction with another performer. And how does it feel to be in dialogue with another form of language and with another performer which is doing something apparently different from what you are doing? How is reaching or changing your way to be yourself in the mime?
Francesco, is a wonderful question that makes me think about the work that we've done together with the piece that we do called Apocalypse Man, that's based on your performance of Bartók's Sonata for Solo Violin. You often described it as a different artistic language, that it wasn't just acting, it wasn't just music, wasn't movement or just music, it was an integration, a meshing of the two. That, for me, that kind of experience is amazingly enriching and exciting, you know? Because basically what mime is and video is the same way. You put images together in a certain rhythm, and that rhythm creates an emotional response. People visualize, they see the rhythm, and that causes a neurological reaction that causes emotion. Okay? Musicians do that all the time. Rhythm is the part of the heartbeat of what you do. So your rhythm and my rhythm become so firmly enmeshed together that there begins to be no difference. That the inner life of your rhythm and the inner life of my rhythm, or the inner life of other musicians and my rhythm, and that's what comes together. When I spoke of my consciousness going to my fingertips, and I think some of you have had that kind of experience, when you live in the rhythm, that's where your consciousness goes. You stop. I mean, some of the best performances I've ever given are performances when I've come off stage, I have no memory of what happened. That I was so totally given over to the rhythm that's where I lived. I lived in the rhythm. And the work with you and the work with the festival has given me an amazing gift to participate in that kind of sharing, live sharing on stage. It's different than a soundtrack. I mean, you can do a piece that has a soundtrack and the soundtrack makes it funny or sad, or that's totally different. But when the rhythms are meshing together, when the movement and the music are so close that there's no difference, that is so profound and such a joy. Thank you for the invitation do that. That was one of my yeses, to say yes to participating in the exploration of the Bartok piece with you. And for some people who don't know what our process was, we were awarded 2 fellowships at a beautiful rehearsal space in Connecticut. It's in the middle of the woods. It's all glass, so it almost feels like you're rehearsing outdoors, and there's nobody else there. And you can rehearse all night, you can rehearse all day, you can do whatever. And we went there twice, and were able to just dive into this set of rhythms. And there were things that I would say, well, can we do this here? And you would say, Tony, can you do that there? And it would just go back and forth. And it was a terrific collaboration. And that also happens with the entire orchestra when we perform at the festival. That the orchestra and the rhythms of the orchestra, the rhythms of the young people on the stage, they mesh together. And I think that's what makes it easier for the young performers, because they're also musicians, so they understand about resonating. They're resonating to the rhythm, to that vibration that is happening with the musicians, and it moves them to be able to go much further than they could ever go. I mean, it's impossible to teach somebody to be a mime in a few days, but combining those 2 things and the sensitivity to the rhythm, to the vibration, propels the young people to do amazing work. I'd like to do something with every single one of you. I see all these smiles, and I can feel what you would already be thinking about doing. So. Who's our young participant over here? Tomas Medina. You have a beautiful young child with you. Is he also or she also a musician? Okay.
No. Hi.
Hi.
He is 2 years old.
What's that again? I couldn't understand that.
He had 2 years old.
Say it in Spanish and somebody can help me understand it better. He's studying something, right? Because I'm having a poor connection when you speak. Who can? Fermin, can you help?
Yes, sure. Yes.
Okay. Can you help me understand what Tomas is saying? Because my connection with Tomas is not so good.
Ahora está bien.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sí. Que tiene 2 años, ¿no?
Fermín.
Sí.
Hostia, tío.
¿Qué tal?
¿Todo bien?
Muy
Que me
bien.
está preguntando él que cómo está, que si el niño le gusta la música.
Sí, te he oído.
Sí, le gusta mucho, claro. Siempre está cantando.
He's always singing. I love the music. He's always singing, and yeah. Voy traduciendo, si quieres.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy to. What's his name?
¿Cuál es su nombre?
Maximiliano.
Maximiliano.
Maximiliano. Ciao, Maximiliano. I'm very happy to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Matisha. Thank you.
It's okay.
No sé si quieres que introduzca algo más.
Gracias.
Maybe last question, just to, it's already
Okay.
almost 2 hours we are together. And
Wow.
Wow. It goes very, very fast. Maybe I want to ask to all of us, if we remember something how the work of with Tony last year influenced in some way what we did after it. The same week, playing with the orchestra, or then in the next month, sometimes experiences we do came out later, and we realized that this is coming from this moment and this experience, and I took this tool or this element, this aspect, to do differently or better, or in a richer way something. Did you have some of these with you during this year?
I will say something. Maybe I'm only thinking now that it's related, but I've started playing with a dancer actually. So I play mostly solo Bach, and the dancer improvises, and it goes really well together actually. And yeah, I guess it's this idea of movement in music, and it doesn't always have to be very traditional classical dance, but yeah, they really feed each other, and it really makes me feel something. So yeah.
Beautiful.
So is the dancer trained in any particular style?
Well, I think like modern dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're playing something that's very traditional with her modern dance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it works, almost the contrast of something that's quite structured and yeah, traditional, and then something that's completely flowing. Because I guess the thing is, when we play even Bach, we want it to be flowing, and we want it to be as though we're making it up ourselves. So yeah, it's quite inspiring. It inspires me to play better, for sure.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we can go to our meal now.
Buon appetito.
And we thank you, Tony, so much for this beautiful time together again, like always. And we are very confident, and we will do everybody our best to be together next year.
Amen.
To experience and to go on together in working with the orchestra. And we wait for you also during the next meetings on Wednesday. I remember you, as I told at the beginning, that the meeting with Diego is anticipated at 5:30, and the others are at 6 o'clock, 25th with Julian Racklin and 27th with Moni Ovadia. And yes, I thank you all very much to hear and to follow this moment. And I wish you a nice to enjoy your music in these days in the way you can do it. And see you very soon, day after tomorrow.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. You made me very happy today, every one of you. Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao. Alla prossima.
destroy